The 4th of July, of course, is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and there are celebrations, which we've been talking about all across the U.S. today. Later today, the National Archives in Washington, D.C. is going to hold a dramatic reading of that founding document.
This is a big deal. They do it on the steps, apparently. An original of that document on display at the National Archives alongside rare versions of the Magna Carta, the U.S. Constitution, and the Emancipation Proclamation. And some of these belong to one billionaire, David Rubenstein, who is also the host, I should say, of the David Rubenstein Show, peer-to-peer conversations on Bloomberg Television. He has loaned those documents to the archives. And in the run-up to Independence Day, I sat down with David in Washington and asked him about his interest in what he calls patriotic philanthropy.
I coined that phrase, though I don't know that it's a brilliant phrase, because all philanthropy is probably patriotic in some way. You're giving back to your country in most philanthropy, or some other way you're giving back to society. But what I meant was philanthropy that reminds people of the history and heritage of our country, the things that make us patriotic. And so what I was trying to do is say things like preserving documents, preserving buildings, things remind people of our history. That's patriotic philanthropy.
Talk a bit about how you decided to do that, how you saw that gap and decided to fill it.
I can't say that I sat down with McKinsey and say, how can I help the country? It was like many things in life, fortuitous. I happened to go to a viewing of the Magna Carta. It happened to be actually a night before it was going to be auctioned. The person auctioning it off said that basically was going to leave the country if I didn't, or somebody didn't buy it. And so I got seduced into thinking I should save it and keep it, the one copy of the Magna Carta that was available to be in this country. So I did buy it. And then subsequently I started buying other historic documents. And then subsequently I began fixing historic buildings, the Washington Monument, Lincoln Memorial, and so forth. Why do that? Who cares? Why do we need to preserve, let's say, the Declaration of Independence, the Magna Carta? We know what's in the text, so why preserve the old documents? Well, the reason we preserve documents and buildings, in my view, is that the human brain still gets more out of seeing an original than it does of a document that's on a computer. And what we're trying to do, ultimately, is get people to learn more about our country's history, be educated about our country's history. The theory of history is that those people that don't remember it are condemned to. So I try to preserve history, preserve documents, preserve buildings on the hope that people will actually come visit these sites, see these documents, learn a little bit more about history, and ultimately be more informed citizenry. What Jefferson said is a democracy is dependent on an informed citizenry. And if we have an uninformed citizenry, democracy isn't going to work that well.
Rubenstein shares that vision of an informed citizenry with the National Archives, which aims to preserve, protect, and share America's historical record. I took a tour with Frank Cordes, who's with the National Archives Foundation.
The Magna Carta is hugely important in our history. It establishes freedom of the church. It establishes trial by jury. Basically, at its core, says that the king and government are subject to law, which is pretty important. So when you get to 1776, the founders go, hey, you're not abiding by the Magna Carta here. And that's what leads to them being able to write the Declaration of Independence.
That's only one of Rubenstein's rarities on long-term loan to the U.S. government, including an engraving of the Declaration of Independence.
By 1820, the Declaration is quite faded, and they commissioned Mr. Stone to make a copy of it. It is a verbatim copy down to the typo that's on the original, where you see there's a little caret with only in there. He even gets the original typo. He doesn't fix it. He makes it as a verbatim copy. And thanks to that, we have legible copies of the Declaration. And this one is on loan to us from Mr. Rubenstein.
John Quincy Adams in 1823 said we have to get some replicas made so that when the original does fade, we have a copy of what it looks like. So they made 200 perfect replicas in 1823. Those 200 replicas, now there are about 50 of them left. I own about a dozen of them, and I put them on display all over the city and all over the country. But now I'm making replicas of the replicas, and I'm giving one to every Major League Baseball owner, every NBA owner, and other places where they can be put on display. And so all the NBA owners and all the Major League Baseball owners will have in their stadiums a very life-size replica of the Declaration of Independence to put on display in this year.
So Jim Dolan's going to have a banner at Madison Square Garden for the Knicks. He's also going to have a copy of this on display as well.
That's correct.
How have they reacted to that, your decision to do that? How have owners reacted to
I think people are proud of having a copy of the Declaration of Independence there. It's a symbolic document.
Some of Rubenstein's patriotic philanthropy leaves a larger impression, at least physically. He gave $7.5 million to repair the Washington Monument after an earthquake in 2012. And now, a once hidden space beneath the Lincoln Memorial is open to the public. This is an early look at the dramatic Undercroft, a museum beneath the iconic structure. David Rubenstein made the founding investment.
If you go to the Lincoln Memorial historically, what you saw is basically a big statue of Lincoln and two of his famous speeches. Now, underground, under the Lincoln Memorial, you'll see educational opportunities. You'll have an opportunity to learn more, see videos and so forth. And people that go there will actually learn more about Lincoln than they have historically been able to do.
I want to ask you about the Giving Pledge, which you signed in your 50s. And at the time, in your statement that accompanied it, you said you hoped it would be something that would encourage other people to follow suit. I'm curious, now that we're a few decades out from that becoming a thing, if it's been successful in that way, how do you gauge the effectiveness of the Giving Pledge?
Well, the Giving Pledge was signed initially by 40 people. Now there are probably about 250 of us who've signed it. It's a very voluntary thing. It says you're going to give away half of your net worth during your lifetime or upon your death. But if you don't give away half of your money during your lifetime, and we wait for you to die and you don't give it away upon your death, we can't disinter you. So it's a voluntary thing. The idea is to really encourage people to give assets away. And I'd like to remind people that you don't need to be a billionaire to be a philanthropist. Anybody can give away money. And people who give away money are, if they're a billionaire or not a billionaire, they're still making a contribution. But I also like to remind people that philanthropy is derived from an ancient Greek word that means loving humanity. It doesn't mean rich people writing checks. And you can love humanity by giving your time. The most valuable thing any of us have is our time. You can make more money, you can't make more time. And so I try to encourage people to give their time as well as their money, and they'd be a very good philanthropist if they do that.
There are critics who say the kind of work that you're doing, this kind of public-private partnership, runs afoul of what we should be doing, that the government should be spending more money itself, taxes should be higher, people should be paying more for the government to do this work. What do you say to them just about how well what you've pioneered here is working, and how do you respond to that criticism?
Well, clearly what people like me are trying to do is to encourage other people to do similar things. The government has more resources than all of us, and the government can always do more. But as we know, getting the government to move forward is very difficult from time to time. So sometimes the government can follow the lead of the private sector. Sometimes the government can lead the private sector. But when it comes to philanthropy, I think you have to do it more from the private sector, and maybe the government will fill in the gaps at some point. If we wait for the government to do all these things, a lot of these things aren't going to get done.